This week on the Boardwalk, we have a special guest with us, and once again, take a more relaxed approach to the episode, focusing on some of the more enjoyable moments of our time in Afghanistan. With that said, we do shed light on an ongoing issue in the military, especially in the Army. In 2019, the United States military recorded a 6 year high in suicides, and in 2020, that number rose by another 25%. There are 114 suicides in the Army during the first 9 months of 2020, and another 156 in the final three. And despite U.S. Army and Department of Defense campaigns aimed to eliminate the stigma of seeking mental health services, it is still a massive hurdle faced by many. So, to anyone out there that listens to this podcast, whether you're a service member or a civilian, blue collar or white, help is available for you. And whether it's a lifelong friend or a stranger on the other end of the line, there is someone out there that does want to help. The military crisis line can be reached at 1 800 273 8255, and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Association can be reached at 1 800 622 4357. Welcome to the Boardwalk. All right, welcome to the 8th episode of the Boardwalk. Today's episode, depending on what time you're listening to this, is another one where we have a buddy of ours on, Matt Jarvis. Before we get to Matt, we're going to be discussing the role of U.S. Special Forces in Afghanistan, especially during our time there and after our time there, how that relates to the Afghan Special Forces. And then we're going to talk a little bit about just intelligence practices and where we had some mishaps there. That's going to come in the later half of the episode. What I'm really excited for, we had a buddy of ours, Mick Lopez, on a couple weeks back. So we got another friend of ours from our time in Kandahar, Matt, he was a Zabul provincial analyst, and he was the group extrovert. And most importantly, Matt ran the Cigar Club. Matt, thanks for joining us. We're happy that we were able to get a hold of you and get you on here, man. How you been?
Good, man. Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so my name's Matt. I worked with all these fine gentlemen in Kandahar, and then I ended up taking over the Kandahar Coffers, which was the cigar club we had spent a lot of time on Friday nights, setting up, tearing down, and hanging out. The only time where you don't feel like you're in a shithole, you kind of get some type of normalcy. So it was definitely a fun time.
Yeah, the Cigar Club, like, it's weird when you think about it that it feels like you're taking a break from this war every Friday to spend 2 hours smoking cigars and bullshitting, but it was definitely really good for our sanity, So when the contractors that were running it left and Matt stepped in to take over it, I wasn't optimistic or pessimistic, right? I was like, if the status quo continues, I'll be happy. But man, that thing blew up when Matt took over. So it was great. The selection improved. We weren't making more money because we didn't make any money. We just put it all back into buying shirts for the soldiers and stuff like that to give away as prizes and whatnot. So it was certainly a nice little morale booster. I know I still have my 3 or 4 Kandahar Coffers shirts. I got a couple coins, the cigar box that I won when I was out there, like those little trinkets that help our time out there
Yeah,
become a little more tolerable.
What all did
yeah,
you
that
do
was
to it, Matt? I had left before then. I
so.
think I left before you took over. What all did you change?
Yeah. So like when I had taken over, the person that had it previously kind of didn't manage the money well, I would say. I guess that's like the best way to put it. They kept it tied up into like one account or just in cash and they weren't actively buying cigars or if you would swag for the club or stuff to like give out for the raffle. So the way the raffle worked, just so listeners can understand. So essentially, the Cigar Club itself was a nonprofit, and it was command sponsored programs. That way we could have Eagle Cash and stuff like that. And basically, you make a donation, and for your donation, you were able to pick a cigar. Well, whenever you did the donation, you also got raffle tickets. And we rip off raffle tickets and we throw one in the bucket and hand you the other one. And it was for every dollar you donate is one raffle ticket. So if you spend $10, you get 10 raffle tickets. And then at the I don't know, probably about an hour into it, I think I'd say we would do the raffle.
Yep.
And basically we'd, pull out these tickets and we'd give away, man, I don't know, hundreds of dollars easily, in every raffle. I mean, usually the first prize would be like a shirt, a humidor full of cigars, a lighter, humidor packets, a cutter, a punch. And now looking at it, from just being like a standard cigar person that goes to like a cigar place every once in a while, oh my God, we got, I didn't realize how much money we were giving away. But it was great. Like it made everyone happy. And then we raffled off about 10 things. So the prizes degraded as it went down. So like the last 3 prizes were just 4 cigars, but still 4 cigars. If you go into a cigar shop, you're looking to spend at least 20, 30 bucks, if not more.
And 4 cigars was really before I say we, but you really took lead on it. Before we took over, that was like the grand prize was 4 or 5 cigars, and then we were giving away $150 humidors, which you go out there, you give $10 to us, you get a couple of cigars, you get a couple of coupons or raffle tickets, then you get this nice ass humidor. It's just like a nice little break from the insanity was this never ending cycle of this forever war.
I look back
Yeah.
so fondly on the Cigar Club. Actually, that's weird. Is how fondly I look on it. And like you said, it was a break. So, every Friday, man, that sun would go down, and sometimes it would be frigid cold in that desert, dude. And we would all just be out there. I'd have like this big Carhartt jacket just bundled up. It was because it was fun, man. And so many people came to that from a bunch of different disciplines, army units, soldiers, contractors. I mean, everybody showed up, and
countries.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, countries. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it'd be like that was one of the most international, diverse things I think I've ever been a part of.
We always had that contingency of Romanians in the corner.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I think and one of the good parts about it was like even for like the soldiers themselves, right? So and it didn't matter what rank you were once you got out there. It was like no salute. Like I mean, I heard colonels talking to privates and they were talking to each other like friends, if talking about cigars, not from like calling sir and stuff like that. It was 100% respectfully, but it was definitely like hey, we're here to have a good time and enjoy a good cigar. I'm not here to talk about work or you tell me what I need to do or lock me up, stand them out of attention, or any of that type of stuff.
And I feel like it was really the only avenue for an outlet outside of the MWR facility. Like we'd go over there, like Saturday nights, and we'd do Cards Against Humanity. We did that for a couple months, right? But that kind of died down. But what always stuck was that cigar night on Fridays.
Yeah, and people need to be aware too. We work 7 days a week, like 12-hour days.
Minimum.
So I mean,
minimum
to us,
minimum
it's like
12-hour days.
Yeah, exactly. So to us, I mean, yeah, that cigar, that's a huge deal, man. Like 2 hours of chill nighttime there in the desert, just smoking cigars is fantastic.
Yeah, in an area where there's no weekends and you're stuck working in offices with people that have partial Asperger's and just trying to win this unwinnable war with less capabilities than you had the previous day. You need something to wind down and clean the engine so you can go another week.
And then even then later on, they tried to stop us from going to the cigar club. They started moving meetings to being during the cigar club to try to force our hand away from it. And I had to go talk to the command staff about it because I was like, this is asinine. Like, this is something to help people, and now you're trying to take it away. If we didn't show up, and that's the other thing is it wasn't paid for us. Like, we volunteered. Like, whenever later on when it'd be like sometimes Zach would have to set up because I would have to stay and do something, or we'd have to have somebody else set up for us because we were both caught up doing something. It was kind of crazy towards the end of it whenever they started trying to like take it away from us, and that's when I noticed it was like time to go.
I think we're going to get into a little bit of that here towards the end of the episode where we talk about intel sharing and how that changed with turn 2 of the Texas National Guard. But I will say very quickly, when I went over to the aviation unit for my last 2 months out there, I was out there with the regular Army captain and a staff sergeant, right? And I get out there, work started at 6, but Friday night at 7 was the cigar club. And I go over to them like, hey, I know I'm here to work for you and do whatever you need, but are you cool if I go over? I'm going to be over here doing Cigar Club till like 10 o'clock at night. And they didn't care, right? Because they understood that morale thing. And that was the big red flag with that turn too, was they didn't understand morale, and it just fucking killed any morale that existed. And trying to push out the Cigar Club was one example of it.
Yeah, I mean, you and me, when we went to nights, I'm pretty sure they like tried to completely stop us from going at all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It got it. That was. I mean, yeah, that was right towards the end of it, and that was a very shitty situation. They burned a lot of bridges and a lot of relationships that we spent a lot of time building, and like mending after they left too. But yeah, that's that's when I knew it was time to go too. When these guys were telling us we couldn't have fun for 2 hours that we weren't even supposed to be at work. You know.
So, can we transition to talking about like those relationships?
Sure.
Using the Cigar Club here, that'd be good. I think.
Yeah.
How did you do that, Matt? Like, how did you use the Cigar Club to form these relationships with units?
So just being out of the Cigar Club and like running it, I talked to a lot of people. I'm a little bit. I'm a very friendly person, so I go around and I meet a lot of people, especially at the Cigar Club, because that's kind of like what it is. And like, especially with running it, I was out talking to a lot of people, and then I started working with some of the SF units out there, and just kind of built that relationship. And they were like, invited me over to come play video games or whatever to start. And then they were like, hey, and I'd say like, hey, we have this meeting, like, I think it might be beneficial for y'all. And they were like, okay, well, we don't really do meetings, but maybe we'll stop by. And that's kind of where it started. And then they came to a meeting. I think it was, I don't remember which one it was, but they came to one of our meetings, to the first one, and they got like the tail end of it, but then they came and sat with us afterwards, and then I kind of walked them around the office and introduced them to certain analysts. And then they started like kind of like, poking at the analysts like, hey, can you help me with this? And then they started talking with them, and they realized that there was a lot of horsepower in that office that was not being used properly at all, which is one of the things I also explained to them is like, you have a bunch of analysts who are really good at their job, and they might not understand like the finish aspect, but they understand everything else beforehand, right? Like building the scenario, giving the intel. So they started seeing that, and we're like, wow, this is really beneficial to us. So there's a few analysts that we kind of would take over to their camp as well to attend some of their meetings with their command staff. After I built those relationships, the ones I felt comfortable with, that weren't going to say stupid shit and make us look like idiots, we would take them over there. Because we did have some of those airheads in that office too, where they would even come to us and be like, hey, I'm not listening to that person. Can you help me?
I think it was like, for the most part, it was me, you, and Stu. Kyle, did you ever go to those as a Pole Mill analyst?
Man, why do I think I've been to at least one of them?
I'm pretty sure you went to one or two.
But I mean, I probably left right as this was starting up, so I don't recall.
I know Dan went to some of them, and I think Brandon went to one or two as well, right? Like, and that was like the core 5 or 6 of us, and
then Karen. I think
Karen went
too.
to a couple.
Of course they want, they definitely want the female to come, which is, I mean,
right. I mean, it's pretty much a guarantee.
Yeah, it's a camp full of men. That's all I can say. Of course,
we should have said Kimmy.
Oh yeah, we could have burned that bridge really fast. God, Kimmy, what a disaster of a person.
Yeah, like, so with that, and I remember it was Jay I think he was with third group, right? He's the one that came over after the meeting, and he was talking to you, or was it Steve, the guy before him?
So it was Steve at first, and
yeah,
he was with first group.
Yeah, he was with first, and then third came after them, and then first came after third.
7th came after them.
7. It's all prime numbers.
Yeah, third was.
Yeah.
I remember that you talking to Steve, and then he'd come over and he talked to us, and we told him like what we thought about Kandahar, and because they're an action arm, right? They're offensive, so we're telling them about some of the targets we have and maybe some of the impacts that can happen. And like you said, they realize that there's some, there's some juice to this squeeze, and you worked on building that relationship over time to the point where I know we weren't going over there every day, but I think we were over there like 3 times a week for their morning meeting, which was
Yeah,
after our morning meeting.
I think
And
it was like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I
yeah,
think you're
and
right. It was like
it was a
Mhm.
good productive meeting. It was a no bullshit. Like once the intel sergeant says it's time to start a meeting, we got really serious, and there was a lot of good information getting thrown around, right? And that worked out really well.
And it's super useful because, like, as in all cases, it seems to happen that the conventional forces had way more analysts than the SF guys did. So we're all focused on like one province, and we're able to deep dive into that, where they have guys covering two or three. So it was super productive and definitely beneficial for both sides.
But that's kind of
Absolutely.
what you want, though. I mean, you want to have that. I mean, they're special forces, right? I mean, they should rely on, to a certain extent, conventional intel support staff, because why waste members doing something that somebody's already pulling info?
So you say that the Rangers were in the same room as us, and I only ever had one meeting with them, and the entire time we argued over intel.
And I think we should tell the listeners that intelligence is one of those things that, like you said, gets argued over. And it's one of those things that people hog for themselves for some reason.
oh
Like,
yeah,
even when
so
people's
fight.
lives are at stake, the NSA will be like, nah, I don't think you guys need to know this. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
I think
Yeah.
the big problem with that is just like you're saying, Kyle. It's like people always want to look smarter than the next guy, right? And that's one of the reasons why I hate Intel. People are like, they push up their glasses like, I'm going to make myself look better than this guy, and then they're going to listen to me. And realistically, they're not doing it. They're only hurting the greater community. That's all they're doing. And then, but
Yeah.
it's a competitive uh, working environment, I guess you could say, especially with that type of stuff, because it's a lot of like people who are smart, who tend to think they are smarter than everybody else, so that they're like, oh, I know this information and so doesn't. Well, I know this information and they don't, or oh, well, they don't need to know this stuff. I'll tell one person, that's it. It's like you're doing no good if the whole community doesn't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, and it's a culture that goes back decades. I mean, 9/11 was able to happen because our different intel communities weren't sharing information. Like, it turned out in retrospect that we had a full picture of the plan that was going to take place, but people weren't sharing the information, and so naturally, when you only have a piece of it, you're not going to be able to prevent it. And so that's a culture that really needs to die out in Intel. I mean, it's been nothing but detrimental for missions and for security of the nation for decades.
Yeah, but
And
it's not going to. So, like
Yeah.
everything else we talk about, I mean, it's only negative. So, sorry,
so
guys.
the funny thing with that is when Turn 2 showed up, we got an invite from Mahalik, which is the CIA base north of Kandahar city. So I went with the two and with the deputy two, and for all the bad rap the CIA gets, and a lot of it is deserved, for their meddling. Uh, they were very open with sharing intel. I thought I was going to go up there and they're going to ask, what do I have? And that was going to be the extent of the conversation. And we talked for like 3 hours straight about like 4 targets in the entire province, and just went into great detail about impacts and all the stuff you look at when you're building like a target deck. It was awesome. Right. And so that was really great that I had that experience with them, because then after that, I was able to reach out to their station chief every now and then and get a little more coordination. But like the entire time we were there, the best partners we had were those SF guys, and that all changed with turn 2, because turn 1, I still contend that Colonel Leesman was a great manager of personalities. Right, he knew how to get the most out of us, and a lot of that was by sitting back and letting us do our job. Right, so
Yeah.
then you get a completely different personality in there, who I don't know if he wants to micromanage or if his deputy wants to micromanage, but it became micromanaging to the point that before they cut back on our trips over to talk to the SF guys and their analysts, they were bringing their warrant officer. Well, in the KIFC, in the Kandahar Intelligence Fusion Center, which is where we worked at, in the KIFC, the warrant officer is really just kind of there. He's not doing any original intel or anything like that. He's just kind of a manager of personalities. And this one, I would say, was not a very good manager of personalities. So, like we were talking about earlier, we would go to this meeting and it was all business, right? It was all steak, no sizzle. And they'd get to him like, "Hey, chief, what do you got?" He's like, "Oh, I got nothing." Like, well, why the fuck are you here? This is for work. This isn't for you to come hang out with the cool guys.
Yeah, that escalated real fast, didn't it, Zach?
Yeah.
When he started coming over there, I think it was like the first 2 times that he's had not like nothing to say. The intel sergeant over there like pulled me aside and he's like, "Hey man, do you have to bring him with you?" I'm like, well, I can't really tell him what to do. Like, I'm a contractor, man. And he's like, "All right, well, just try to see if you can sneak out from now on." Like, I was like, sneak out of my office. So like, it's an open office. It's not like I have like a door or something where I can just slide out. He's like, "Well, we don't want him coming over here because he doesn't do anything for us. He sits here like a fucking idiot." And he just tries to like, and he like you said, he just wants to hang out with the cool guys, and he tries to like what I would call my method of doing stuff with them is throwing out. But he wasn't good at it at all, and he was fucking sloppy. Was the other thing, is he was super sloppy.
Like, you and I probably had the greatest access to the group guys. You certainly having more than me. I only saw the team guys twice ever, right? So it's not like we're sitting there saying, "Oh, it's cool, we hung out with long tabbers." It's like, no, we worked with their analysts to help them achieve their mission, right? And I don't think Chief was about that. He was about going over there and either micromanaging us, making sure we weren't talking shit, or just being there because he thought it was cool, so he can go back to Texas and say he was hanging out with SF guys.
Well, and at one point, I don't know if you remember this, Zach, but he like it was at like the end of the meeting, he started asking for something.
I remember that.
The intel sergeant looked at him and goes, "Are you fucking tasking me?"
He asked them for intel.
Yeah, and he's like, "Are you really trying to task me in my office? Like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like, don't ever come back." And that's exactly how that relationship got burned real fast. And then it was, the 2 and the deputy 2, which the deputy 2 had a hate for Zach and Stu, and why I'm not sure, but he could not fucking stand him. But he absolutely loved me.
Fucking hardcore, yeah.
But the 2 himself hated me, and that was okay because the decom loved me. And during a meeting at one point, basically told him to fuck off and leave me alone. So that was a really interesting one, because that was right in front of the CG at the time. But back to they kind of burned that relationship, and what ended up happening was the deputy 2. I remember House. We were sitting and we were having a roundtable discussion at one point, and he like walked over and like, I don't remember if it was like he interrupted it or he told us it needed to end. And then when they left, he basically told me, he's like, "I don't fucking want those guys over here. Like, this is not fucking cool guy hangout hour, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, he's like, "I don't give a fuck if you think you're cool because you hang out with them." And I essentially told him like, "All right, dude, that's fine. We won't do shit with them, but you can like fuck right off." Because they're either way, like, I had built that relationship to be friends as well. And I basically, had to tell him like, "Hey man, I'm not just sitting here bullshitting with them because they're like SF guys. Like, no, we're fucking actually doing some productive work because you have no fucking action arm and you are fucking here to fucking write white papers. So shut the fuck up." But yeah, that they burned that bridge real fast, and it took us a while to fix it too. I know, like, towards the end of it, we all left and we basically just said fuck it. We didn't care,
I started doing a lot more email correspondence for about 2 months.
Yeah. I mean, they really wrecked that relationship. I mean, shoot. So me and Matt ended up moving on and contracting together, doing like some different stuff. But both of us were back on CAF supporting the SF guys on the other side this time. And I didn't see a lot of coordination between the KIFC and the SF guys, after we left. Not really.
No, I would actually say zero. And I stayed on CAF a lot longer after Stu had moved back to Bath. And there was nobody that went over there for any reason at all. the only time that changed is when they changed it to an RTT, which was Regional Targeting Team South. Um, and that's when basically the AOB stood up over there in the cube form across the hall from the KIFC, and that was the only. I mean, and even over then, they had their own office inside of there where they didn't even let those guys in, which I thought was even fucking funnier because right next door they had, it was like 15, 20 analysts. And then what ended up happening is they ended up taking the camp, so the AOB's S2 shop and moving them into the KIFC, but they had their own little section away from everybody else. And they didn't even go as far as getting up to walk over to their, 50 feet away to talk to those analysts, which is it's insane to me. They all worked in the same office and they still didn't talk to each other.
I guarantee you part of the group guys passed down with their relieving unit was, hey, don't fucking bother talking to the intel guys at the KIFC. I have no doubt that was a part of their pass down because like once a bridge is burned in the intel field, it is so fucking difficult to get that thing back. Yeah, it's more than likely it's just flat out fucking gone. And we've talked a lot about how, and I've said this specifically. If you guys think I'm incorrect, by all means, let me know. I think turn one wasn't as effective in disrupting the battlefield, but was better at preserving district populated areas. Turn two was all about trying to kill people, which wasn't their job, and we lost a lot of ground because of it. And I think the reason why we lost a lot of that ground is because we stopped coordinating with the SF guys and giving them that intel that their very small analyst shop just couldn't sift through because there's that much of it.
I would say that, but almost, I think it was more like turn two was, like you said, trying to do a lot of targeting, which I actually stood up their targeting team towards the end to actually make a targeting team because they realized they didn't know how to do it. But they tried to do this whack-a-mole shit, and they couldn't get the support that they needed to do it or the okaying of the action they were trying to take ever. They were trying to be like an an SF unit, and they weren't.
So it's important for listeners to note. I think we talked about in one episode where, a good business, a good contracting company is a veteran-owned, minority, women, disabled business. Well, we may not be able to fill all those requirements, but we did come up with one. Nobody in the military likes to read. It's kind of a trope. You hear about, military intelligence, isn't that an oxymoron? Well, kind of. Because I would spend, I don't know how long, writing white papers that were like pages and pages long, but nobody wanted to read them, right? So what they wanted was that information condensed into what a stop-go chart, and one of these stoplight charts is essentially like, if something's good, it's green in color. If something is sketchy, it's going to be yellow, and if everything's gone to shit, it's red. And so we just decided to come up with a company to take and correlate all of our intelligence down to just 3 colors, and it would be called Charts with a Z because we're cool, and we wanted it to be a business where we take intelligence and we make it readable for high level military officers. And guys, yeah, let's talk about charts. I'd like to get it off the ground.
So the idea for charts comes from Kyle and Matt. You guys get full credit for this one. We were walking around the boardwalk one day. Remember the show's named for the boardwalk that we walked around every day, and we were talking about working with these officers and how we write all this shit, and at the end of the day, they just want like a 2-sentence write up. And so Kyle's like, they love fucking bubblegum charts so much. Let's just we should just make all products from here on out bubblegum charts, and it's just red, yellow, and green. And then Matt, because Matt's the go-getter, the extrovert, he's the person we go to when we need something done. He's like, everybody's got a guy. Matt's our guy. He's like, fuck it, dude. We can make a company and we could make millions doing this. And I think, Matt, if we had access to alcohol, you would have probably filed like a fucking claim to incorporate and start that company. It was so close to being done. But we took this idea and we had fun with it, right? Like I made a a very mid 90s grainy cursive logo with like it changed colors from one side to the other.
It's just
We
word
threw
art.
in our
It was word art.
Yeah, it was word art. I threw it in in my signature. So if you converted our emails to HTML, which nobody ever did, you would see the logo in there. Like we had a fake email called getfucked@charts.biz. Like we had a lot of fun with it. And these are things you do to help kind of pass the time and maintain some sort of, sanity. And like that, along with we had Hawaiian Shirt Monday. Well, Hawaiian Shirt Monday was the second thing. The first thing was Teal Tuesday.
Oh yeah,
And that's because
Teal Tuesday is great.
Matt and I, not only did we live together, we lived in the same room, we had the same shirt. And I used to come into work like an hour and a half ahead of Matt because I'd go to the gym really early. And Matt came in that same day and his cubicle was across from mine. And we were wearing the same shirt, the same pants. And I think, Kyle, you made a reference that you have a shirt of similar color.
Yep.
And so I looked at Dan and Stu and Brandon and said, buy them. And I started that next week, every Tuesday, the 6 of us would all wear teal to the office. And then we thought, and then the boss said, what's next? Hawaiian Shirt Monday. And we thought, yep, it is now. So next thing is we went out, we bought Hawaiian t-shirts and we wore those on Monday. We had Kandahar coffer shirts on Friday.
Now we had Hawaiian shirts with collars on them. That's very important because we're a professional outfit.
Yeah.
We're professional.
Yeah. 100%. 100% professional, especially when you crack into your beer at the morning meeting.
Did that a few times, But I remember I thought, let's have some fun with this charts thing because the boss he did like the bubblegum stuff, but he would sit down and he would collect intel from us, right? He was really good to work for. I ordered ping pong paddles that were red and green on either side, and I think I found a one-off paddle that was yellow, right? And so for a couple of days, when they'd call on us, like the morning meeting, they would go from provincial team to provincial team. So me being the Kandahar analyst, I've got the yellow paddle. I'm like, sir, it's a yellow paddle day. Kandahar City's safe, but we can't access the highway to get to Aruzgan, so that's kind of bad. And then I think Christian got in on it because he was the helmet analyst, and helmet was an absolute shit show. He just, he's like, it's not good. And then Dan, this is when they're taking like the provincial center in Aruzgan. Dan just holds up the red paddles, like it's fucked up there. And everybody had fun with it, right? And those are the little things you did. But that's where charts comes from. And to this day, I still think about charts and how we're going to crush so much prod and stuff like that.
Yeah, crushing prod is the idea. Yeah,
crushing prod.
Crush prod.
Man, I've been in so many meetings where I've heard people just say, this would look a lot better if it was just like on a chart with like stoplight chart. And I'm thinking to myself, like, good God, I really wish we would have made that company.
We could have been millionaires.
Yeah.
We could have walked into the Pentagon with that idea. We would be rolling in money right now.
Well, so I just watched Pentagon Wars the other day for the first time, and I completely agree with you. We could, and if anybody from the Pentagon is listening to this, I've got an idea to sell you.
Yeah,
you already know my contact information. I've had a security clearance. Just give me a holler, and let's make this happen. We can do some real over the horizon operations from my basement with some ping pong paddles.
Over the horizon. And it's a very easy transition to make because everyone in the military loves heat maps. So you got colors here, you got colors here. Bam, there you go.
Yeah, heat map the entire. Well, Afghanistan would just be red. I mean, the entire country would be red.
What about that top part above Badakhshan?
I think you could probably
the part touching China.
Yeah, that would be probably yellow, and then I think maybe Bamyan would be okay too.
I think that little finger touching China is going to be a big facilitation route once we pull out. We'll see.
No. Well, they're just going to head down to Matt's stomping grounds in Zabul, man. Like Zabul was the place to be if you were not an Afghan.
Yeah, I used to call it like the Taliban resort. They're sitting there drinking Mai Tais, hanging out.
Yeah.
Because nobody wanted to go there.
Their governor was incompetent. I met him one time.
Which governor?
The one that was like very well educated but hated by everybody. I can't even remember his name.
I think he hated Zabul too.
Yeah, he's probably dead.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Zabul was a red paddle type of province, anyways. Right?
All the time.
Yeah, and like the whole charts thing, man. That not only I do think it helped us as analysts. Like at the end of the day, right? It's that immediate release in the office. Like with that, do you guys remember the chicken that Brandon and I had?
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. So for the audience, there, like think about those rubber chickens that make a squeaky noise. You know, well, Brandon, when he came back, he's on the other side of the cube farm, right? And we had a rule: if you squeeze the chicken, the other person who has the chicken has to stop whatever they're doing and squeeze it. And he got me, and I'm talking to like the deputy commanding general or the deputy commander. He wasn't a general, right? He's a full bird colonel. And Brandon hits the chicken. So I'm in the middle of telling him about like a Taliban stronghold in northern Kandahar. And I'm like, excuse me, sir. Like, grab the chicken and I hold it up and I got to do the slow release thing. And he's like, what the fuck is that? I told him, well, sir, we have to, whenever he squeezes the chicken, you gotta squeeze the chicken. That's the rule. And I'm wearing like, it's a Monday, so I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt and shit. And he's just like, okay,
Yeah, I accept
Then you
it.
got
there it is.
Yeah, it's just
then you also had the Nerf guns.
the
We
Nerf
had
guns
Nerf
got us in a
guns.
lot of trouble though. After a while, we got in big trouble for the Nerf guns.
101st
Well,
was
that's
okay
because-
with it. Turn 2
well,
hated it.
that was because I think it was up at Bath at the time. Contractor got shot with one, and he got hit in the eye, and they had to medevac him out because they were worried about him losing his vision.
And
Which is
Jesus.
funny because when I had first got to Kandahar, I remember walking into the jock, and there was this captain there, probably one of the funniest dudes I've ever worked with.
I remember him.
He would throw things. And I mean, he wouldn't, like, people would do Nerf guns and stuff. They all, when they'd start, but he would throw stuff. And I mean, like, apples. Fucking,
heavy
all-
stuff.
he would pick up stuff, like, from his desk or the desk next to him. And he was actually a pitcher, a college pitcher. So he would throw it. I remember I was walking out one day because they had this back exit. I think I was going out there because at the time I smoked. So I was walking out to go out for a smoke break. And something flew above I think it was like one of those squish balls, but it came flying above my head at about like 60 miles an hour. And I was just like, good God. And I remember and there's another dude in there who had a blowgun, and he would put Nerf darts in it, and he would just launch them across the jock at people. It was probably one of the funniest, and like that's exactly how that office was. Like as soon as like it was time for like get a little bit of a break, they would do some pretty wild stuff. But that was definitely during turn 1 while they were there, and that was a lot of fun.
Who was
and
the
helped break up
Australian
the
kid?
monotony.
Who was the Australian that always had the rugby ball and it would just like be passing it back and forth between his hands
Yeah.
the whole time?
Dude,
You know, at one
I
point-
caught him outside when I was smoking once, and I asked him about the Great Emu War that
Yeah.
they had,
sore
and
subject.
I don't know if he was pretending, but he said he'd never heard of it, and I was like, I probably shouldn't ask you about that.
He's fucking heard of it, dude.
Yeah. You know what? It was a funny story about one of the Australians. There was a female who was basically, I want to say, kind of like a secretary for the CG at the time, and she had came in to the jock to ask something, and the Australian dude said something to her, and he's like, man, and then he's like, God, she's acting like quite a cunt, ain't she, mate? And then she like heard it, and she like turned around and was like, what the fuck did you just call me? And like blew up, obviously, but like, as for them, cunt is like not like a very much a derogatory term as it is for us. And they were like, whoa, miscommunication here. Hold on, like
Cultural
you go back
differences.
to- like you go back to your office. You go back to this. And that was probably one of the funniest things I've seen an Australian do. Like it was hilarious. Her face, man, just like dropped, and like she was like, and like spun around, and like knife hand out, and just started screaming. But he was an officer too, which it was kind of bad that she was doing that to him. But it was pretty funny.
For those listening, that word is like the Australian version of calling somebody a dick.
Yeah.
But
At
Well,
least when
no,
it's used
it's also-
negatively. It's also used
it's al-
positively.
It's just degrading, like I can't.
eh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
hell, I'm not Australian, so I feel like I'm culturally appropriating their language now.
Right? But yeah, those are some of the things we did to get away, and like with the cigar club, right? On top of that, so that was Friday nights, and then we had Sunday morning breakfast at Echoes, which was Echoes is like what's it, a Dutch restaurant or like technically Dutch, but none of the food, it was just like generic food, right?
Just
But they had
just
yeah,
American burgers and stuff and pizza.
they had pizza. We'd get pizza like on Saturday night or something like that, and they did this thing where they put egg on your pizza, which I thought was weird, and it's fantastic, and like an over medium egg, right? It was awesome. And then Sunday mornings was pancakes, and maybe it's because we were in Afghanistan and the food at the dining facility was fucking miserable,
It used
but
to
those
be.
pancakes hit the fucking
The
spot.
food actually
Oh,
was
yeah.
good for a
Talking,
while when they let those.
Yeah, until Dynacor came
Yeah,
in.
they let the local nationals
talking
make
about
their
the
own food, like so it was actually pretty good. And then Dynacor bought it out, and it just ruined it.
Contractors.
Not only was Dynacor ruining our food, they were also banging little boys at the checkpoints. So
Yeah,
I mean,
several problems with them.
talking about food. Remember chicken wraps on Fridays? Oh
Yeah,
my
at the
god!
boardwalk,
oh yeah,
at the kebab
the
house.
shawarma, no, the Donners, the
No.
Donner kebabs.
Oh,
Not
Doner kebabs.
no,
Yeah.
not the donors. Well, those were good too. But remember the chicken wraps we used to go
Oh,
get from the DFAC
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
from
remember
that
what you're talking about.
from that. Yeah, we used to go get those. Oh man, those were good too.
The key to eating good in Afghanistan at a military installation is never eat at the same dining facility twice in a row. Because when I got to the aviation unit, I was on the other side of the base, so I was going to that DFAC every day, and I got really tired of fucking chicken wraps real quick.
Oh,
I couldn't do it anymore.
But yeah, I mean, in a
That
losing
North-
war,
that North
guys, it's
line.
the little things. Isn't it?
yeah. You gotta hunt the good stuff, as the military would say. Hunt the good stuff.
Yeah, the
Yep.
the SF DFAC had this this chicken salad that they made that was like 50% croutons. Oh, solid.
It was amazing.
You know, I was always very surprised watching Stu make a dessert. The creations he would come up with at the DFAT, and I mean, it would be like random shit he would like put together, and I'd be like, that actually looks pretty good. Like, damn, Stu. Stu was definitely our dessert connoisseur.
I was the
for
resident
the
fat
listeners.
boy. It just came to me.
The Gordon Ramsay of the ice cream stand.
Yeah.
Like we talked about at the beginning, that was a lot about just the intel sharing and how that went downhill, and the importance of sharing intelligence between whether it's three-letter agencies or military units in a war zone. So if there's any three-letter agencies listening in on this, waiting for us to expose classified information, which we're not going to do, share your intel with your partners. Moving on, we did say we were going to talk about the role of SF and how it evolved over time and how it was really difficult for them at times. And like the initial role is really, if you read the book Horse Soldiers or watched the fucking movie 12 Strong, there was no role, right? It was get into Afghanistan, get into the northern part of the country, link up with the Northern Alliance, and start establishing relations, right? And a lot of that's because we didn't have any sort of a country brief built for that. Like Stu was saying, we had all the intel that 9/11 was probably going to happen. We just didn't have it all consolidated. And had we had it all consolidated, not only could we have prevented it, but we probably would have had some sort of a country brief for Afghanistan, understanding that we may have to go to war to fight Al Qaeda in northern or really anywhere in Afghanistan, right? So you got this small SF team in northern Afghanistan that doesn't really have a role. They're linking up with Dostum, and that's kind of how it was for a little while. And then as we kind of got settled in, there became like Stu's talked about. You had area teams. You had those those joint task force. You had north. You had south, and was it north, south, southwest, and east or something like that, and central.
Yeah, and then they, as we drew back, they ended up conglomerating together.
Right.
But yeah.
But we had better capabilities. There was more understanding of what a mission was and things like that. And then as time went on and we started to understand coin a little better, which at one point I will say that we were understanding the proper way to fight conduct a counterinsurgency. We enacted something called a village stability operations. and that was uh, you would embed SF teams with all these villages throughout throughout parts of Afghanistan, because like we've said, Afghanistan's 75% rural. That is such a hard word to say, and you're talking 24 to 27 million people, right? So you'd have these teams out there, because when you look at counterinsurgency, one of the things you need to do is you have to clear the area of insurgents, and then you have to build, and that's building relationships. It's building literal infrastructure. It's building security and things like that. So that's what the SF teams are supposed to do, and the VSOs they worked out pretty well. The biggest issue is that there were too many villages and not enough special forces operators to conduct these VSOs in a wide enough span to have long term success.
Agreed, and I think it's because we use special forces like the elite of the elite to do this kind of thing, when that could have been delegated to conventional forces to kind of expand it out, I think. So, I mean, why use the elite of the elite to do something that's going to be the thing that's necessary for stability? And I just don't think we had the people, like you said.
I mean, it was partially delegated out. I mean, you see a movie like Restrepo. Like we did have conventional units out there embedding somewhat with the populace, but they were also mostly like defending a hilltop. Like that would be the majority of their role there, and then maybe going after bad guys every now and then. But yeah, I mean, a ton was put on the SF teams throughout the war, and I mean, it honestly it only got worse as the war went on, and we started pulling out and basically shrinking down the areas that the SF guys, or expanding the areas that the SF guys had to cover. Um, in my first deployment in 2012, we were covering like the Paktia and like Wardak, greater Wardak areas, and that was a battalion of SF guys working that area, and then my next deployment we ended up covering like several more province areas, and by my third deployment we were covering all of Afghanistan. And so instead of having like a company element per province and then having SF teams being able to embed and maybe like each take a district or share a district in some cases, you suddenly have like a single a single special forces team having to cover like an entire province. And what are you going to be able to accomplish there? It's pretty overwhelming. And like the toll that it took on the guys was definitely noticeable, especially as the war went on. I mean, when VSO was initiated or earlier in the war, guys were going out there for a year plus, and I mean, you're just embedded in Afghanistan. You're trying to stay alive, trying to get the bad guys, while also maintaining all your relationships back home. And there was a super high divorce rate going, and it was really crushing these guys that were constantly, as soon as they get home, you're basically cycling up and getting ready for the next deployment. I don't know what the typical conventional like preparation or whatever is when you come off war, but basically we would come back from Afghanistan and we'd have different cycles that we'd go through, like red cycle, and you'd basically be doing your different taskings. You just got back from Afghanistan. Okay, now you need to go to a school or two or whatever and get ready for the next deployment, because sure as hell it was coming. And by the time I got out there, they had changed the rules to where SF teams would only be deploying for like around 6 month intervals. I think my deployments varied between like 6 and 7 months when I was working with group. but even then, I mean, you deploy for 6 months, you come back to the U.S. for a year, a little under a year, and then you're right back out to Afghanistan again. So it it kept the time between deployments pretty low, and you're constantly in that mode of, okay, I'm getting ready to go back to Afghanistan again.
Yeah, there's a lot of group guys that have upwards of 15, 16 deployments, right, between Iraq and Afghanistan. It is, and that's another thing we're not talking about, is that in the midst of all this stuff in Afghanistan, they're also going to go to Iraq. Like, I remember, so I grew up in North Carolina, right outside of Fort Bragg, and at the time there was two SF groups. You had Third Group and Seventh Group. You had Special Forces or Special Operations Command headquarters. You had Joint Special Operations Command headquarters. The Q courses are like, it was the home of SF. And there was a stretch during my last 2 years of high school, like 05, 06, where all these SF guys were coming home and just killing wives and strangling girlfriends and stuff like that, because they were just so broken down that they didn't know how to comprehend just the slightest thing going the wrong way, or coming home and trying to surprise their wife and maybe she's being unfaithful. Like, they didn't know how to comprehend this shit because they were just so worn out and exhausted physically and mentally.
Yeah, and we didn't have the the setups that we might have today, and there was definitely a huge stigma with going and trying to get help. I mean, suicide was a huge issue as well as we were growing up. But man, yeah, they're like, I mean, I think the stigma for getting help is probably still there today, as much as the army tries to work around it. But I mean, the big thing with a lot of these guys is they're the best of the best, and they don't want to leave their teammates on a rope, and have them deploy without them. Because I mean, my first deployment, we lost a lot of guys, man. It was I was up at the SOTF element, at the battalion level, and we did all the like, I don't know what you call them. It wasn't the funeral, but it was like a like kind of a
Roll
like
call.
they did like a whole ceremony for the fallen
Okay, like
soldiers.
just the memorials
Yeah,
at funeral. Okay.
memorials. There we go. Yeah. So yeah, I was up at the battalion element, and they would have memorials for both infantry and SF guys that we lost. And I mean, we lost. I want to between the two, like between like 12 and 20 guys. My first deployment. You just constantly seeing it like tear them up, and it was from all kinds of stuff. I mean, shoot, there's a guy, Chief Duskin, who's like a legend in Third Group. They named a base in Afghanistan after him. We lost him pretty early in my first deployment. And then there was a Captain Keel who'd worked in the office with us up there, and then went down to get his team time, and he got killed in a green on blue attack, which is Afghans turning Afghan army or SF guys turning on U.S. forces. And so I mean, it tears people up, but you still have to like they still end up having suck it up, finish this deployment, go back home. Oftentimes, in my experience, uh, people will be working jobs that aren't their MOS, because they just don't have they lost guys and they got to fill the roles. So I mean, I don't know. It definitely took a toll on the SF guys, despite how well they performed.
Yeah, and so it was really good on the point of, or from the end of the JSOC command, when they changed the deployment tempo, right, in the 6 months
Yep.
on, 12 months off. That was really good. The issue after that became when we're talking about the Afghan Special Forces, and we've talked a little bit about them, The Afghan Special Forces are basically the best of the Afghan National Army. Uh, One of the big problems is that the Afghan National Army is not very good. And I don't say that in a tongue-in-cheek manner, right? There's news articles about the Afghan National Army running a base on the outskirts of Helmand or northern Kandahar, and you have a journalist there chronicling their time fighting the Taliban, and you see a lot of Afghans abandoning their bases or their posts. You see a lot of Afghans taking off their uniform because they don't want to be captured by the Taliban, right? So when you have this fighting force that doesn't want to fight or is not competent enough to fight, what you're going to see is a greater reliance on other outside elements. And the way the structure worked is that if the Afghan National Army couldn't do it, or if they just didn't want to do it, they wouldn't do it, and the Afghan Special Forces would step in and do it. And over time, the plan was the Afghan Special Forces would be going out on patrols with the U.S. Special Forces. And over time, as the Afghan Special Forces became more competent, more comfortable, and more familiar with their tasks and drills and what their missions were, we would pull back some and let them take the reins and take lead and do all that stuff. Well, I was reading an article before we came on, and it's talking about how the Afghan Special Forces are going backwards now, right? The Afghan Special Forces in 2018, they conducted 55% of their operations independently, which means they didn't have U.S. Special Forces partners with them, right? And I think most of the operations that were done when we were in Kandahar were joint Afghan USSF. There was never any I can't recall a single operation that was just Afghan Special Forces, right? So 2018, it's 55% of these missions the Afghan Special Forces units are doing independently, which is, I think that's a pretty good number. Then you get into 2019, and that number drops to 43%. And you get into the last quarter of 2019, and that number is 31%. So now what you're seeing is the Afghan Special Forces units are doing the same thing that those regular Army units are doing. They're turning tail and running. They're taking off uniforms, doing what they can to get out of, commencing in a firefight, and they're relying on the U.S. Special Forces. So we have this nice transition where the op tempo changes to give our SF guys a breather, right? So that they can go back to being human a little bit. So they're not just in this endless cycle of, shoot and run, come back. They do a language refresher and they go right back out to the desert. There's a couple years where it's pretty decent. And then the Afghan Special Forces has stood up, I think, way too early, right? One of the things we were talking about is I think in order to stand up a special forces element of an army, you have to first have a competent regular army. And I don't believe you can look at the Afghan National Army in its current form and say that it's competent. And even the parts that are competent, now you have to worry about corruption, right? So we're taking the best fighters from a pool of not very good fighters and putting them with our best fighters, and there's a significant difference, and it's costing lives.
With that, Zach, like you said, I think there's that huge gap, right? So it leaves a really large gap, and then what, like you were talking about before, the misuse. I don't think it's really so much that the Afghan SF aren't fighting, but they're being misused. I feel like they get funneled around to put out fires or do patrols whenever they should actually be like an action arm for high valued people or high valued operations. But instead, some provincial governor is like, hey, we're about to get attacked in the provincial, the capital's gonna fall. So then they funnel out those Afghan Special Forces out there to protect it. And then they sit out there for, 2-3 months or however long they get stuck out there, which then kind of pulls them away from the fight completely. And then they can't run any operations. And I think that's really where we see that degradation in the percentages is they're being misused. I don't think that they're not willing to do stuff. I think it's just they're highly misused.
And at this point, they're just a defensive force, Matt. Because we've pulled out all these forces. So now, if the Afghan Special Forces are the only ones competent in the Afghan army, well, they have to fill the entire role of the Afghan army essentially, and
Hmm.
and, and I've seen them in action. I mean, when I did aviation, we'd watch their operations combined with U.S. Special Forces, providing Overwatch and intel for them, and I wish I could say, oh, I've got great faith in the Afghan Special Forces, and compared to the regular army, sure, yeah, they do fine. But I mean, you could hear the exasperated, tired, and just beat up U.S. Special Forces and the JTACs and stuff on the radio. Just like they can't even like hit stuff with mortars, like basic, what you would teach a regular U.S. Uh, infantryman, right? So they can't do
I think
basic
one
stuff.
with that one term I think I heard it called was it's like herding cats,
Oh yeah, for
like
sure.
having them on
Hmm.
They
operation.
describe that a lot. Yeah. And it was just it was rough because you could see from the air, well, here's the target, right, and you would just watch the mortar fire just hit God knows where, like like way off. I mean, you could watch it, and you could watch them engage enemies too, and not kill a single target. They could open a machine gun up on somebody and just like miss every single shot. You're just like, oh man, I don't know. I know that they do their best. I mean, God bless them. I mean, they try, but it's like when you're the only ones willing to actually fight, you're not even. Yeah, you are the army. The Afghan National Army is its own separate thing. You are the army as the special forces, so you essentially don't have any special units.
Yeah.
But special forces is not defensive, right? And that goes back to what you're
No.
talking about, Kyle, where we can't use them like that, but they're being used like that. And I know we're talking a lot about SF. I don't claim to be an expert on US Special Forces. I was never with them. This is all just like our observation, right? From working with them, from reading about their missions and stuff like that. And the thing that just has rung true time and time again, the SF community is super tight knit. You read any of these books that these guys put out, and it's it, it's almost like a stereotypical trope where you get a captain's talking about getting to getting to Kandahar or getting up to Bagram, and he runs into some dude who he went through the Q course with 10 years ago, right? Because it's such a small community, they all know each other. It is a different level of brotherhood than you would find in a conventional military, right? So when they're out there with their Afghan partners and the Afghan partners are dragging ass, or they're not up for the fight, they're going to go out there real quick. If like the second they get the go ahead, they're out there, right? It's in their nature, and it's hard to instill that into somebody, right? You have to want to be that type of person, that alpha male, and I just think that's lacking in the Afghan Special Forces.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for coming and listening to us today. Big thank you to Money Matt for coming out here and hanging out with us for a while. It's always great seeing you, man. So I just want to reiterate what we said at the beginning about seeking help if you're having troubles with and anything that you've gone through. It's very important. I know some of us have benefited from it, so I just want to leave that there. Please, if you enjoyed the podcast, visit us on Instagram at the Boardwalk Podcast. We post updates on there between episodes, and also we post updates when all of our episodes come out on Saturdays. We're looking at expanding our social media more, possibly looking at like Facebook or YouTube. We really want to make it easier for our listeners to give feedback, because we'd really love to hear from you guys. So if you guys have any questions or comments, we definitely want this to be an open dialogue between us and you, and we're certainly open to talking about things that you guys might be interested in talking about that maybe we wouldn't think up on our own. So we'll put an update out when we get things rolling on that. But we're just enjoying putting this podcast out there, and I think for all of us, it's good to be able to talk about this, and hopefully, some of these important issues that we discuss, could maybe get into the ear of someone who makes decisions someday, and maybe they won't make such dumb decisions. In any case, thanks for listening. Have a good week.